Hello and welcome to another episode of the Construction Corner podcast. I'm Dylan. I'm your host, not joined by my blue collar badass today. Matt had to attend to some family matters, so it's just going to be me. But to help me through this episode and to share some light on the construction industry, we got two awesome guests that we'll just get right into it. Since Matt and I really have no banter because he's not here. So Clint and Robyn Pigeon established Two Birds Furniture, which I would like to hear how you guys came up with that name, in 2013, which is a Canadian-owned architectural salvage business that specializes in reclaimed wood products such as beams, barn doors, mantels, feature walls, and shelving for commercial and residential construction, which your guys' stuff is beautiful. You guys should check it out in the links in this episode. Both Clint and Robyn are entrepreneurs who are each ran their own businesses prior to meeting and getting married in 2013, which hopefully you met prior to getting married, and had some dating in there, but we'll get to that. Clint had a version of his own business since he was 17 in contracting and construction while having a degree in business and was a certified firefighter until his business took off. And Robyn was an equine chiropractor for 13 years before shifting into interior design, and they launched Two Birds, and that became both of their focus. In 2021, Clint and Robyn co-authored their book Business Life of Husband and Wife, which obviously we're going to talk about that today, and launched their podcast in 2022 under the same name in hopes of helping themselves and other couples continue to build their life and business with their significant other. So with that, Clint, Robyn, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us and reading that beautiful introduction. I'm like, I've never been introduced like that before.
It's amazing what I can write when I get some time, hey?
Yeah, but all the details were almost all accurate.
All right, so what was off? Let's start there.
We met in 2012.
Okay.
Yeah. Got married in 2014.
That might be an important date to remember.
Right. So there was some dating. There was in there.
It was almost 2 years of dating.
I read it and I was like, well, I hope, was this like a shotgun wedding kind of deal, or what's the story there?
From what you wrote, it sounds like a shotgun wedding.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Shotgun arranged marriage, something like that. That's what it.
Something along those lines.
Yeah. So that's why she has to edit things that I send.
Oh gosh.
But I was close.
Yeah,
I think
you were very close.
2013, give or take a year, right? I'm fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Plus or minus, it's just missing that 10-year anniversary by a year,
Might get in trouble for that one.
Better late than never.
Yeah, there you go.
Actually, it would be early. That means we would be celebrating 10 years this year.
There we go.
Maybe I'll just get 2 gifts.
The wrong number on the cake, kind of thing.
Right.
Which, anyway. So Robyn, I want to start with you just because first, what is a horse chiropractor? Like, how does that work? I'm really curious on
That's fair. This is a question that I actually get a lot. So I went to a couple schools here in Canada. So the BC College of Equine Therapy is where I started and got my equine sports therapy certification. And then I also expanded my education from there, from the University of Guelph, further into nutrition and specifically the sports hab rehabilitation. And then I also worked directly with a professor from the International Academy of Equine Sports Therapy as well. So that was all like in my early 20s, had my own business and everything doing that, was on like tour with all of these show jumpers all over North America. And specifically, it's like focusing on high performance horses and maintaining that high level.
When she says high performance, she's talking like this one horse you worked on is $5 million horse. Like they're not just your run of the mill. They're like a full on athlete, right? Like
yes. So, and like human athletes, horse athletes, they have a team of specialists that help them maintain that level of performance like a human athlete would.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I used to live in Northern Virginia, right outside of the Plains, and so that's where Gold Cup is every year. So a lot of the jumpers and stuff like that. And then when the Olympics was still, when horses were still like in the Olympics in 2000, all the gold medal winners were pretty much from the US. We're all from like the Plains, which is like a little tiny village, barely has a post office kind of place. But it's where Gold Cup is. So you see a lot of jumpers and a lot of show horses there. And then like the farm that I lived on had a lot of, one of the farms that I lived on was a stud farm, Angus stud farm for beef cattle. But then they had a husband and wife team there that took in like retired race horses, basically.
Oh,
The
okay.
track and that whole thing. And I mean, there's a lot of money in horses for sure.
Yes. And it's like its whole like own world.
Very much so. It's a different world. So for you guys listening, I grew up on an isolated post when my dad he broke horses for the government so they could go to the back country. And so completely different Western like style.
Very rough.
Right?
Yeah.
When you meet Robyn, who's very dressage and proper and and I'm like, none of this makes a lick of sense to me. There's two different worlds colliding.
What do you mean I can't hang a rope off of this saddle? Like
you shouldn't. The horse will explode.
So did you guys meet in like the horse world, or how did the
oh
two
gosh, I'm gonna let you tell this story about how we met.
So I accidentally ended up at a wedding in Vegas.
Accidentally.
So we were coming, buddy of mine, we're leaving Laredo, Texas. So I did my firefighting school down in Teeks out of Laredo, and we were driving home, and his parents had a place in Vegas. So we were like, oh, that'll be a good segue point on the way back to Calgary, because it's not close. It was a 37-hour drive from Laredo to home. So we'll stop there. Well, we decided to go out in the Strip. He knew of some people that were getting like a wedding party. So I'm gambling away, and Robyn shows up, and she's a bridesmaid. This is the bachelor party before the wedding. And he's like, oh, she sits down beside me at the roulette table, and hi, I'm Robyn. Pink pumps, black shirt, full bottle of champagne. I'm like, okay, here we go. That's exactly how we met.
Moment.
And we actually started talking, and we spent a couple of days together, and then we got back to Calgary and went on our first date 2 weeks later or so. And we just had a lot of things in common. And
yeah, we found that our values really aligned with one another, like despite meeting in such an odd circumstance. And we happened to be from the same place and like knew a lot of the same people, which was just, well, I like to say it was meant to be, because it's wild that we met in Vegas.
Well, yeah, we probably would never have met or crossed paths otherwise. So people always like talk about the universe or whatever the plan.
Yeah.
It was random, but it like just happened that we were from the same place, and we had fun together. We still get along after 10 years almost, if I can count. After the intro, I'm not sure.
We've been together for 11 years. Yeah. Married for 9.
Plus or minus 1 based on that.
Hey, it's the over under, right?
Yeah, close enough.
Yeah.
So you guys get together, and how did Two Birds come about?
More as a joke. To be honest, it was kind of the name was kind of a joke, because Robyn married a pigeon.
I married a pigeon.
So
Robyn Pigeon.
It started out as a bit of a joke, and we ran with it because it's kind of funny.
Well, and it sticks and it's memorable. Like we meet a lot of people, and I introduce myself. Hi, I'm Robyn Pigeon. It always gets like a handful of giggles. And then I even tell them like what my maiden name was. And I'm like, well, if I would have hyphenated, it would have been a bit worse. My name would be Robyn Brown Pigeon. So it's very memorable. So that's essentially why we stuck with Two Birds after all this time, just because it is memorable.
But the company itself, like from firefighting, I think I was on the department for 6 months, maybe. I ended up getting a contract to go build pole frames. And when you're, on a paid per call firefighting salary, which is not much, and you're 23 and you're like, this sucks being broke this bad all the time, and you get a job for like $100,000 building build out, you kind of jump at it, right? And so I did that, jumped into that, and we were tearing these barns down and all these old buildings and just popping a concrete pad down or throwing poles in the ground and tinning it and whatever we had to do. And we were getting rid of what there's history that was just disappearing, and it really wasn't trendy yet.
No.
Like the environmental kind of like space of salvaging lumber and, you know, reclaiming and recreating and using the textures and the layering and all the things that are kind of that go through design.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really trendy. And I just started getting a stockpile sitting at the farm that my dad was like, that's enough. You got to get rid of this crap. Like, you can't keep it here. And so it kind of just started slowly transitioning. And then Robyn was still doing her chiropractic work. And we just decided one day, sitting in our townhouse, that we were going to start building barn doors and a couple things for people. And
yeah, it started out as gifts. And my brother and sister-in-law, they were expecting their first child. So as a gift to them, we actually created our very first set of barn doors, and they actually still have these doors to date. And it was just like a gift to them. And they're just like these beautiful old doors that they used as a backdrop in front of their crib. And essentially it just started spiraling and everything from there. I shouldn't say spiraling, but it just started building and everything from there, that we ended up, I think, so that was in 2014. And then we actually opened our first space, like our first actual brick and mortar, in 2015.
It was one of those, like, you guys know Steve Blank? You guys listen, like Steve Blank, and he has like the kind of the startup guide. So he was a university, I think he might still be, but he was a professor at Stanford. And so he had a startup guide, startup manual, and it was like the product market fit test. And basically it was just all word of mouth that kind of started. And then we started testing products to see if they would work. And we've done
people like them,
see if they like them. And then it was like, well, we have a pretty good idea here. And there's not a lot of people doing it yet. There wasn't very many people building interior barn doors.
No.
Tons of exterior stuff you could get, right? But you couldn't get hardware yet. It wasn't popular. You couldn't get it just wasn't mass manufactured on the scale that it is now to get some of the things. And the way the trends are for home building, open, big beams, big doors, like we weren't seeing that when we first started, not the same way.
Yeah, well, and even with our contacts with the agricultural community, it gave us a lot of connection to find those older buildings that were not being used to what they once were. It also gave us access to a lot of different things that other companies that were trying to start at the same time didn't have access to, that we did.
Yeah, I think being from a farming background, and people like that you're taking the history and you're preserving it, you're selling the story. We have postcards of every building with like a written history from the owner of the barn or the building that's coming down. So there's like a talking point when you have your mantle in your house and you're sitting around having a tea with your friends, or coffee or a beer.
Well, the history lives on. And like Clint had mentioned, when he had started this, like, he noticed that buildings were just getting dismantled. Well, not dismantled, they were getting demolished and like chucked in a hole and lit on fire.
You dig a hole and you light it on fire. That
essentially,
was the concept.
But at least like now, those stories are being gathered. We're sharing those stories. Those stories are continuing to be shared, whereas before they would just be forgotten.
So within that, like, do you guys primarily work? So you've got a brick and mortar now, or, and started back in 15, but you got a brick and mortar. Do you work primarily with like the individual homeowner, or do you work like through an architectural firm? How does,
that's been a transition for us. So we started out like literally customer to customer, just individual clients. They wanted a piece for an ensuite because builders quit putting a lot of doors in houses, right? Like bathroom doors, very bizarre place not to put a door. So it was an easy solution. So you're just offering a solution, and it started individuals just looking for that solution, and we kind of just fell into it, to be honest. And then I don't know, I'm
gonna say like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
The home builders started to reach out to us, actually looking for that same solution, but creating that like art piece or that talking piece within the home that they could offer these clients that no other home builders were offering at that time. So the first time we started working with home builders, probably about 8-9 years ago now.
Yeah, the first builder that reached out to us. And then we started looking at it from a sales thing. And it was like, well, repeat customers that were, we kind of know a schedule. We've got a set routine. It's easier to train the guys on, trade days and install dates and what the product line is. And we started to streamline doors. We got 25 doors, 20 colors. Once you guys know how to build them all, you're kind of ready to go. Once you've installed one door, you kind of can figure out all the nuances, and it's pretty simple. So we kind of streamlined that. We've kind of gone almost I would say we're closer to 60-40, or if not 70-30, like builders, architects, interior design, a lot of interior designers.
Yeah.
We provide like basically a wholesale product to them that we do full tear downs, build and install. So it's all the way through. So it comes finished. So they're not waiting for a painter to come in to, spray the doors down or whatever. Like when we go in,
it's a finished
product. And we just deal with the warranty and little touch-ups as the build progresses until the homeowner gets possession.
Mhm.
Nice. So they get like that custom piece, they got a story, and then working with kind of the value add for the like interiors group, architect, home builder, whoever that might be in there, so everybody really wins through that scenario, right? The homeowner's got a great piece, it's a value add and a story for these custom guys, again, whether it's a home builder or home architect, residential architect, interior designer. That's
and
cool.
it's custom to a degree, right? Like, like everybody listening, most builders, they have their custom side, but it's not always 100%
custom selections.
Yeah, custom selections. You just give options, right? Because you can go 4 times 4 and you've got 16 different options. So, and you don't want to overwhelm people anyway, because selection process for a lot of people, it's like deer in the headlights. It's deer in the headlights after a while.
Right. Yeah. You get down to your 3. Well, and going through the home builders and architects, that makes sense to where they can narrow the options to where, they only present 3 to the homeowner, right? You can have 100 options behind the curtain that about, they know about, but the homeowner is only going to see, 3, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now like we're to the stage with all of these home builders is that in their physical selection studios, they have just like a 2 birds display that their clients then do selections based off what that home builder wants to see in their homes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Nice. Through that and transition slightly here, obviously you guys still work together, you've got good chemistry with each other, play off of that, but how is working, with a family member, with a spouse, with someone that, not all days are going to be sunshine and rainbows. How do you guys make that work?
Well, that's a long.
I'm like, there's a long answer and a short answer.
Yeah, we'll
let Robyn give the answer here. She can start and we'll see.
The short answer is very intentional communication. That is the short answer. The long answer of how we got there was trial and error of and really just focusing on where each of us have our strengths, because we're both strong in different areas, and knowing where to divide and conquer, and being okay with being weak in a certain area because that your partner is strong in that area. So in being okay with being vulnerable, which you're already in an intimate relationship anyways, so you already know those strengths and weaknesses. It's just like bringing that out and being okay with it and not letting ego get in the way.
Yeah, that's the big one, ego. But we did something. So when we wrote our book, when we got bored during COVID, because we got our retail front end side, so like 30% of our business got like shut down. The industry still kind of kept going, right? So we still had our wholesale and our builders, and we still had to provide and build for them. But so we went down in hours significantly in the amount of time that we were putting into that 30%. So when we wrote our book, we actually did a SWOT analysis on ourselves. And a lot of people are like, it's an awesome marketing tool, right? It's in your marketing plan and your business plan, but we actually use it on ourselves to see what our strengths, and we actually like had that hard 20-minute thought process of what am I actually good at?
What do I suck at?
What do I actually suck at? Why are the things I suck at a threat or an opportunity? And we went through and did that whole thing, and then we cross-referenced it with each other and put it all in the book. And well, it was a
fun process.
It's a good practice just to be like, and then we sat down and had these really intentional conversations, because I grew up, and like you said, we grew up on a farm, and my parents worked together my whole life. So I grew up with that. So for me, it was more innate. I just watched mom and dad got to go, we're going to check cows. We got to bet, we got a bull that's out. Let's go together. We got to pull a calf, whatever it might be. We did that together as a family
that's
unit.
How you grew up.
I grew up like that because we were on an isolated post. There wasn't anybody else. So if dad wasn't out, you're 7 years old and you're with mom, and where you go. Like I grew up with it. Robyn didn't grow up with that. So I have a very, very good on-off switch. For those of you that like work in construction or work cows, it's very vulgar and can get very, very mean very quick when you're trying to sort cows out. So that shutoff switch for me just came naturally, where it's like, oh, I just swore at you for 4 hours in the pen, but
everything's fine.
Everything's fine here, having
here's
a
some
coffee
cookies,
after.
you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So everybody's just, oh, that's just how it was, like little heated, and it calmed down. So I have an on-off switch.
That switch took me a couple of years to, I'm gonna say, be okay with.
Right, like when I go to work, and like this is what we're doing, and it's a little more direct, and it's not as, cordial
Fluffy.
and fluffy as it would be when we're having dinner together and we're out on date night. Little bit different conversation.
I'd hope.
Right. So that was the big transition.
That was the biggest point, but that happened very early on, just because we both went from having our own two businesses, and then all of a sudden we're like working together. But fortunately, like determining what those strengths and weaknesses are, we determined that like I'm good in like the design, the PR, and that type of thing, and whereas Clint is very good in like the manufacturing, procurement, that type of thing. So we're already running like different departments and everything together, and then would just come together to essentially plan and do all that strategic stuff. So I think for us, the beginning, having that little separation as well helped with the process.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, the biggest thing that I took out of that really is doing a SWOT analysis. And for all you that aren't up on the lingo, so SWOT is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It's taught in pretty much in every like MBA program. And through that is I like that you did it on yourselves. I think that's something that like I don't know that I've ever done one. Like I have, the innate thing of like, well, this is a strength, this is a weakness, whatever those might be. But I don't think I've ever sat down and like, is this really an opportunity? Is it a threat? Is it something I should work on or improve? I've done it for businesses, done it for business plans, but to do it on yourselves, I think is a cool way to come about it. And even for other companies, to do it with your executive team, right? To do it with your people would be a way to really sort through, right person, right seat, are they meant to be on the bus with you on the team until I'll move forward. So I think that I took a lot away from that piece, and using a SWOT analysis on yourself. I don't think many people have done that one.
I don't think they had either. And honestly, it's just I get random wild ideas. And I was sitting there looking at this tool as I was writing our business plan again, because we have to rewrite it as most people do. You're like, oh, I got to update it. I was like, this is a great tool. And when you start working on yourself and like looking inward, I was like, I need something that's not just like a goal sheet, or I needed to actually, and this was because I've done it before. It was just this, it was sitting there as a tangible tool that's already out there. And it makes you reflect. And then we actually were able to sit down and have really intentional conversations about, one, our relationship, two, where we want to be, and like growth, like what a growth mindset was, like what do you want to do, and what are you planning, and like how do you feel about it,
and what strengths we needed to find from other like individuals to hire that we were both potentially missing.
That was the big one, because like we kept running into like we'd have turnover that we weren't expecting. And it's like, well, what did we do here? What were we missing? Or we'd have overlap that we didn't need, right? A lot of overlap with the employees or the staff that we had, or the contractors that work for us. And we're like, what are we really missing? Oh, we need this person. Like we needed a tech person who could help us operate the CNC at a faster level and teach people how to run it. Because my computer skills are not at the same level as, and we all know how time works, right? Like I can put 20 hours into kind of learning a skill and be okay,
subpar,
or I can hire somebody and they can be, the efficiency is just there when they have the skill set and they've spent more time than I have.
Yeah, which really brings up a good kind of segue into really to the labor market, and to training people. And I think, well, I'd love to hear your take on it, but to kind of frame it up is, obviously in the industry, we have a labor shortage, right? Of skilled labor, skilled people, skilled trades, right? Nobody really wants to get out, work with their hands, do any of that. And even for project managers, estimators, right? A lot of the office staff, BIM modeling in the big commercial space, like there's a lot of just skills gaps within that, right? From pretty much up and down the chain of construction. And so there's there's two ways that we go about it. One is, you have these technical schools and people get trained there, which I think is, there's a time and place for those. And then the other is obviously in the field and companies building out their own training pipeline, which I think is going to happen more and more. But love to hear your take, both you guys, on really that training piece, the industry and kind of where we need to go as a whole to help keep construction going, because it's not going anywhere. You can't really export construction, right? It's got to be done in your own home. Like, you can import people to do the work, but you can't really, like, I mean, some of the prefab stuff, like, we can export goods, but at the same time, to install it, you need somebody there on the ground to do it, right? And concrete doesn't travel that far. A lot of these other products don't travel far, and you got to do it there locally, to wherever you are in the world, right? Which is a kind of neat thing about construction, is that it's a very local business, within a couple 100-mile radius. So I know it's a lot and kind of a loaded question, but Robyn, if you want to start on where you think labor market's gonna head, or what are you guys doing about training and that side of the business?
Essentially, our philosophy and how it has been at Two Birds, we primarily look for someone who is just keen to learn. They don't necessarily have to have those skills, because in the construction industry, there's so many different places that you can start and so many different places like that you can learn, or like directions that you can go. So quite often we look for like the core values, the personality of the person that we're looking for, because we have a smaller team of just 10. So we primarily look for that, and we just build it up as we go, because also each industry has different systems that they use. So even if someone coming in does have some skills, they're not going to have those specific skills potentially that you need. And even like in the woodworking industry, like Clint had mentioned off air before we started recording here, that quite often a lot of people will come and have the skills to like create perfect boxes out of perfect material, and that's reclaimed in architectural salvage land. Like, nothing is straight, nothing is square, nothing is easy. Like, it's just like, even if you're coming in with skills, sometimes those don't work.
I think it's the nuance training, right?
The nuance training, yeah, that was ultimately where I was going with that ramble.
But I think, yeah, it's the nuance training. So for us, like the training of people, it's different in certain trades.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's ways to do everything. There's the standardized tools. So I did my first year apprentice in bricklaying at 17. That wasn't really my cup of tea, but there's set ways that it's done, right? You have a set product, you have a set, and it's the stone is the stone. You either have, you have blocks, or you have like the fake stuff, and you just, it goes on, and it is what it is. And the concrete mix is the mix. So there's like, it's easier to standardize and like teach people. When you get into like the nuanced stuff, like we were talking about installs for training, it's got to be on the ground.
Yeah.
And like, you can do a lot of classroom stuff, and you can sit there and be like, and we can train guys, and like, we actually show them like, this is how I want my barn doors installed. Because I have no training whatsoever other than farm training. Like, well, I didn't go into it. It was also all the products that we've designed are a little bit different built than you would see, say, in like a classroom setting, or in, your in your trade school. When you go into woodworking, it's done differently, because it's my way. I kind of made some of them up. So for training purposes, like, I can show you, I can be like, hey, I can put a barn door in 25 minutes using I have these shims custom made. I have everything ready to go. So I don't measure. I don't have to anymore, because I've got all my pieces that come with my kit. You go in, you put them in. But the first time you go and install it, most guys take 2.5, 3 hours, because they're afraid of messing up. And so for me to be there with them and show them how to do one, and then walk through all the nuances. Hey, the floor is not square. Okay, we have to make sure the track and the level, everything's level, but the floor can be out of level, and we can kind of hide these different deficiencies that come with a settling foundation, or whatever might happen on a site where you have to kind of visually make it appealing, even though it's not perfectly plumb, which always happens in everything. Or you get a wall that's, a new framer's put in, and they haven't framed a lot, and you've got a crooked wall. Well, all the crowns are different. They're different directions. And you're like, well, that's not helpful. So teaching these guys these nuances, it's more on the ground for me. Like, when we go into educating people, and then we have to educate the clients on, well, how come it's not fitting perfectly, and why did you have to put this extra spacer behind, or why did there's a there's an education on both sides.
Mhm.
So it's one to the customer base, because a lot of them they probably could do it, but they won't, because we talked about time. A lot of them are like, let's just get this guy to do it because of time. Whereas our guys, if they can come in and do it faster, they're willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
So the training comes from both sides. That's what I've always done. I've always done on-site training. I find it easier because,
Well, and most people retain the information if they're physically doing it rather than learning it in a classroom situation or learning it like virtually, that type of thing. The retention isn't there. Like if you're physically learning it and then also actually doing it, like the retention is so much higher.
and that's a big thing that we're missing right now, is a lot of people, they either don't know or don't want to know. So I always over explain things to my clients, whether they want to or not, because I'd rather they have all the information, because then if they ask a question, they can actually ask a question that maybe we actually need to fix that problem, or it's not some, it's not something that's actually serious at the middle of that install. It's like, we'll get to that in a second, but like, it's not a big deal. This is how we finish this, and this is how we're going to break an edge or fold a corner or hew a beam, whatever we're going to do.
Mhm.
So I think educating on both sides. And then you were kind of talking big scale too, like in the trades at the beginning of the question. Like, so like big scale, like we were talking, there's a shortage in people and skill. I think people want to learn. Like I literally, awesome kind of story that kind of hit, like for me, like we're at Robyn's mom's 70th birthday, and my nephew comes up to me and he's 9. And he's like, can you teach me to build stuff? And I'm like, heck yeah, I can. Can you teach me to like use the CNC? And he wants to build himself like a sign for his door, and then he wants to build himself a rack for his medals and things like that, right? To hang his trophies and put his stuff on. I'm like, I can teach you. And he's starting. So there is that want of like these kids that want to learn some skills besides, because they're seeing us do it.
Well, and I think it's also can be overwhelming for that new generation as well, because they have so much information put in front of them that quite often the trades isn't the sparkly one, right? Like it's the TikTok star, the YouTube star, that type of thing. Like it's having a tangible skill is not set up to be like as actual valuable that it is.
Yeah, and I think there's a few things in there. One is, to the last point is you've got to show him, right? The reason he came up to you is because he sees what you're doing, right? And I think we have, as people in construction, a duty and obligation to show others in our communities, right, what we're doing, what we're capable of, what the projects we're working on, right? Not all the time can we do that. Like a lot of stuff that I work on, can't really be shown because it's for other clients or other firms, that it's not, my stuff. I do a lot behind the scenes. But to show the scale of which, we're working on, or a unique thing, right? That a lot of craft, a lot of like, you guys have the opportunity and ability to take pictures of your finished products on the installs, to bring people to job sites and see that family, be super happy or pleased with that custom piece that's got a story put into it, and then they tell somebody else, and that might be a thing that they want to, that other person want to do, right, and have that as a career and a job path. The other thing that I think was important in there is that, one, going on site with people, but two is, in the beginning, it's not going to be efficient, right? Like, yeah, it can take you a half hour to do it 10 years in, right? And it takes
Yeah, exactly.
the new guy 2.5 hours, but there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that we have we get impatient, right? Just as people. And so because you can do it so much faster, but you have to let them struggle through putting it, doing that installation or doing that design or doing that estimate or whatever it might be. You have to let them kind of flounder. It's just like riding a bike, you gotta take the training wheels off and let the kid fall a couple times to learn. And I think we have a hesitancy or tendency to not allow people to kind of fail in that matter, right? Not to like completely ruin it or, burn the house down. Like they're not going to go that far, but you know what I mean? In that they've got to have that ability to learn and grow and do that a few times, right? The first couple are going to be slow, but in 3, 6, 9 months, they'll be, they won't be half an hour, but they'll be 45 minutes or an hour, and then that's still feasible. It's still doable. And I think that training piece and hands-on and taking the time and being patient with people, especially as they're learning, is so crucial to not only getting more people in the industry, but to retaining them within your firm. And I think, that gets kind of changed at some point.
I agree. I 100% agree that a lot of us get, and I get it. I'm still impatient with certain things. Like, I think it's just, like you said, human nature, but you're like, why is this taking you so long? Like, you guys are supposed to be back at the shop an hour ago, and they had a hiccup and they're problem solving it, but they're not calling anymore. They're actually just going through and they're problem solving that little hiccup that they're having to make it work for them. And so the patience thing is, it's a learned skill that I'm working on, right? I think all of us are, though, because you have to, right? You're sitting there and you're like, I know that this person's they don't want to mess up.
No,
You don't want to you don't want to be the failure. And you also don't want to be like the old school guy that comes in and chews your staff out because they failed. Because that just makes them even more, they kind of get almost into a shell, and then they're afraid to even take a risk
or make mistakes
or go for it, right? And I think we all still make those mistakes and
I'm like, every day
as you get bigger in business, they just get a little bit bigger, so you try to nip those in the bud quicker.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a key point, is people don't come into work and be like, how can I ruin this company today? Like, how can I do a bad job today? Like, 99.99999% of people are not thinking that, right? And so, especially new, right? New people are always excited to be there, excited to show up, excited to learn, excited for the job. And so you have to keep giving them that excitement and things to be excited about, to continue to show up and learn and grow and everything else.
I think that's another little sidebar too, is like a lot of us in construction, we're trying to follow a model in business that's taught, in my opinion, in like a Silicon Valley model, right? It's rinse and repeat, and you want to be able just to get people into this system and have them push them through. But construction is not always like that. So you can't, and a lot of our business owners, we try to do that. We try to have these set structures and everything's perfect, but that's not reality for how most people need to work. So what we try to do a lot of the times is, and especially me, because I'm a little bit, I don't know what you call it. Robyn has called it, I have dueling hamsters or dueling squirrels. And so I come up with a new idea. I'm like, hey guys, like, we're going to try this today. And they're like, what? Like, we're going to build guitars. Why not? We're going to learn all the nuances on how this works, and we're going to try and build electric guitars. So this is what
now we have 5 reclaimed guitars now.
But it keeps it interesting because they're learning new things. And then I get a different guy on the program learning from our guy on the CNC to, you're going to learn how to program a guitar and, like, the cutouts and how to make it work and, bit speeds, all that stuff. So they get pushed into things maybe they're a little uncomfortable with, but they're exciting because it's new, right? They're not building the same door for the next 25 years.
We've created a very safe and like comfortable environment for them that, like, when Clint comes in with these like ideas, let's just call them ideas, that everyone is like excited about it, and now we have our team come in and they're like, hey, well, why don't we try this? And why don't we try this? So now, like, our whole team is on board with all these like harebrained ideas.
And they're bringing us ideas.
And it's incredible. So we've created such like a fun little incubator of like fun ideas of like what to do with scraps and what to do with like our waste and stuff, of even like the recycled stuff that we're using. And it's quite fun.
Yeah. Like, just for an example for the listeners, like we had, so one of our staff comes to us and she's like, what are you doing with all your sawdust? I'm like, well, kind of getting rid of it. Sometimes we throw it in gardens or we give it to different, guys who need it for oil and stuff like that. And she's like, well, why don't we do fire starters? Like, that's a brilliant idea. Really? Because we have all this extra sawdust. Wax isn't really hard to get a hold of, and away you go. So she's in her garage and sending us videos of lighting things on fire the one night, and we're like, this is hilarious, and brings a whole bunch of samples in. So, but it's a great way for them to start, bringing their own ideas in, and the training goes into that because you're making it a fun environment. And in trades, I don't think we do that enough.
No,
I don't think in construction we make it a fun environment because it's strict timelines, execution, all that stuff's important. High pressure. It's super important that we hit those timelines and keep people happy and execute at a high level, but it's also super important that we do these things to make it where people want to come and be a part of it. And that's what we're missing on the ed side, is it's it's boring right now because there's so much inundation of 6-second TikToks and things like that, that the attention span for boring is zero for the new generation coming up. They don't have it to last the longevity, right? If it's not exciting or a little bit new or something that just tweaks their interest to keep pushing forward.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I mean, we're coming up here on time, which I would love another hour with you guys to talk about it, and especially to bring Matt back on, because I'm sure he would geek out on all the woodworking and all that kind of stuff, since he's a carpenter by trade. So for him, it would be cool to get to dive into a lot more of the intricate details and nuances of what you guys are doing, since I I can run a skill saw. That's about it, kind of thing.
I'm like, that's where my skill level is as well with woodworking. I'm like, I do all the AutoCADs and I can run a skill saw, maybe.
Yeah, straight cuts, table saw, skill saw,
Sample
nails.
cuts.
Yeah. Yeah. No curves, nothing like that. So where can everybody find you? And then let's just closing thoughts.
Okay, I'll do where everyone can find us. So for the architectural salvage company, it's twobirdsfurniture.ca. You guys can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, House, Pinterest, all of those as well under the same name. For the podcast and the book, it's under business life of husband and wife.ca, and you can find everything there. And we're also on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook there as well.
Yeah.
And all the links will be in the show notes below the episode.
Awesome.
And then, yeah, closing thoughts. I know this time kind of flew by, honestly, for me. So
it was so fast. I'm like, I feel like we were just getting started.
I know. We'll have to schedule a bigger time block for next time. But
I think for me, it's just like we touched on 3 different concepts, really, right? So one is like, as a couple, like analyze, and even if you're a business partner, like it's good because the thing is business partners are going to have core values that are the same, but you're also going to have 2 different family structures, right? So being able to bring that all together is going to be huge, and you might have more. Standard is 3 sometimes. Like they always say in startup mode, you need 3, right? So you're going to have different ideologies, and how can you make sure that you understand each of your values, your goals, and where your guys are headed? And you can use simple tools. It doesn't have to be a SWOT or anything like that, but that's something that we took away. And it also finds out who you need to hire. I think that's the big one, is like, once you figure out what your partners aren't good at and what you guys are good at, that's where you need to fill your hole, right? That's the first person you need to hire to help you, or whatever it might be, to save you time and efficiency. And that's the big takeaway. And then training wise,
we just like to keep things interesting, because as entrepreneurs, we know that we innately get bored very easily. So even like with us as individuals, we like to keep things like exciting. And yes, sometimes the work can feel a bit repetitive and like, oh, you're doing barn doors. So quite often we like to, like Clinton mentioned, oh, we're building guitars today. And like, oh, like for example, yesterday we shut down the entire showroom, shut down the entire manufacturing space. And we're like, you know what? Everyone's ripping a barn down today. So we all we're in the middle of nowhere, pulling like all these boards down and just having a blast out together and just enjoying like actually being a team with one another. So I think that inconsistency in schedule is also very important for building a great team and being a part of trades. Yeah.
No, I think that's so important. You got to be known for something, right? So keeping that in the forefront of your customers, clients, everybody's mind about what do you do, right? And making that as clear and concise as possible. But at the same time, having that variation for your team, and they got to be great at what they do, but at the same time, mixing it up and giving them something different to work on, kind of checks all those boxes for like, human needs and what people need to be fulfilled, not only, in business and work, but life in general. So, Clint, Robyn, thank you guys so much for coming on the show. We'll have to have you back at some point to talk about all the woodworking stuff and the intricate details, and and really to dive more into training. I think, having people to come in and that are true craftsmen, right? And I think that's what you guys really bring to the industry. Obviously you're doing it up there in Canada and Calgary, but to have people that are true craftsmen, and to, that not everything is square, not everything is level, and to have that ability to make it look good at the end of the day for that homeowner, that client, and have a great finished product that people can be proud of and have a story to tell. I think that really bringing that storytelling aspect is something that's really cool that we all need to do more of in our own businesses, and figure out ways to bring those stories to life. You just happen to do it with some old barns and making them new again.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate everybody listening, and thanks again.
Thank you.
All right. That's going to be this episode of the Construction Corner podcast. Until next time.